Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you're joining us from. And I hope majority of us are joining us from the UK because we're broadcasting from the UK live. So this is Africaness Neurodiversity Program. And my name is Dr. Vivian Okoye. I am the Neurodiversity and Inclusion Lead at Africaness. And we have put this amazing webinar series together, and I'll just give a bit of background as to why we're doing this, where we're coming from, and what has led to all of this. At the heart of what Africanness does is really to support children through their parents and families so that children can really have, you know, a very, very positive identity, and that children can be included wherever they find themselves, regardless of where they're coming from, regardless of what their needs are. So sometime in 2022, 2023, we carried out a research to explore the barriers in accessing autism diagnosis in the UK. And we know that a lot of parents are struggling with that. A lot of parents who have children who have needs struggle with understanding what's the pathway to get the diagnosis my child needs, what's the pathway to get the support that my child needs. And this is, that conversation and the findings of that research showed us a huge gap in the challenges that African and ethnic minority parents face in the UK, and we have put this together. And at the root of that challenge is really awareness and knowing what to do, how to do it, right? So we have put this webinar series, which is a six-part webinar series together to help us grow in our awareness of what autism is, of what neurodiversity is, to build capacity, to build confidence, to know what to do, to know how to support our children better. And today, we are having a conversation on the myths and misconceptions around neurodiversity in our community and how to really, 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 bust those myths so that it gets out of the way of getting the relevant support that our children need. And I have really amazing, amazing powerhouses joining me in this webinar. First is Jessica, who is my co-host and who is the neurodiversity support at Africaness. And then we have Anna. I'll make proper introduction as we go. But before we dive right in, I'm going to just share my slide um, in a bit. All right, so before I dive right in, I'd like to acknowledge our funders. This program is funded by the Leeds Community Foundation and Sir George Martin Trust. And, it's because of their funding that we're able to put all of this together and to provide the support that we're providing for parents in our community. And today, like I said, we're talking about the myths and misconceptions in the African community. And before I dive right into introducing our guest and introducing and bringing my co-host on, I would like to really just share, a bit of, my own experiences around the myths and the common myths and misconceptions from a research perspective, because when I was doing my research, I had to interview a lot of parents, and some of these myths, came up. And if you're a parent here, you're listening to me, I'm sure that you have some mindset around neurodiversity. First of all, what do you understand by the term neurodiversity? Or if you haven't heard neurodiversity, you must have heard about autism, you must have heard about ADHD, you must have heard about learning disabilities, right? Some of them are all related terms under neurodiversity. So if you have heard any of this, what comes to mind when you hear about neurodiversity? When I was doing my research, a lot of people have different ideas of what neurodiversity is. For example, I had a family who told me that for most of the families, right, they hadn't heard the word or engaged with the concept until their child started having challenges and they had to start seeking support, right? So that was when a lot of people were like, okay, what is happening here? I had families who told me that prior to their child seeking support, they had thought that, when somebody is neurodiverse or when somebody had autism, that the person was physically disabled, right? So what this means that, when you hear autism, you think that is a child who is disabled, is a child who is physically disabled. I had people who associated it with the vaccine. There's a massive conversation around autism and the MMR vaccine, right? Some people thought it was spiritual problems. Some people associated it with bad behavior. So even when a child is struggling based on the difficulties associated with being neurodiverse and being on the spectrum, they were still being punished because, parents were not aware of what was going on. They just thought the child wanted to get away. The child was just being aggressive or misbehaving. So these are just a few of the myths that came up during my research, and it was really eye-opening. And these are some of the conversations we want to have, right? And I know that Jessica, who is here with me, has two children on the spectrum and has a lived experience of being a neurodiverse person herself, right? So I'll bring up Jessica. Jessica is the support at Africanus, neurodiversity support at Africanus, to share from a lived experience point of view what's her own experiences around myths, what myths she has encountered or she had, or she even had prior to her own diagnosis and her children's diagnosis. So if you have any myths that you have heard of or that you have, please share with us in the group before we bring our, amazing speaker on board. Jessica, please.
Hello, everyone. Well, my name is Jessica. I am an autistic person myself, and I've got two children as well, as Dr. Vivian said. Before the diagnosis of my children, I didn't know what autism was. The only contact with autism that I had was what I've seen in the movies, and that was white children. So to me, that was something that was not in the Black community. That was the first thing. Autism. I don't know anyone around me that is autistic. How can this be? So then I encounter other parents that they didn't understand autism as something being for Black people. So that's one that I feel is a big one. Then again, I thought, because most of the time the intervention is on children, in my head was, okay, if I find the right intervention, when they grow up, autism will disappear, because there is nothing saying anything about autism in adults. So there is no
Yeah.
autistic adults.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that some people think as well, that links to the thought of autism having a cure, which we all know. Well, we might not know, but autism, there is no cure for autism. There is intervention that will help the development, but there is no cure. But to me, at that time, especially when I was seeking diagnosis for my first child, I thought that there was a cure. And then again, things that I've spoken to with other parents from the African background was this thing of saying, if they will grow out of it, like, let's wait. When they grow up, I don't know if it's magically or something will happen and they will grow out of it, or this misconception that, for example, boys speak later than girls, so they will not seek support because they think that if they wait a little bit, maybe the speech delay will improve. Some cases it happens, other cases it doesn't happen, and the intervention is needed. And those are the main things that I've been hearing when I speak to parents, and what I've experienced myself in my experience and like around my family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing, Jessica. And one of the things we can deduce from that is that, having these myths and misconceptions would always get in your way of seeking diagnosis and seeking support, because if you have these beliefs, then you're not gonna find the support or go after the support that your child needs. So without further ado, I would like to bring our amazing, amazing resource person for this conversation, um, who is a parent, a SEN parent, who has done many things around, autism. Her name is Hannah Otto. Please, can you give her a round of applause in the chat? If you can say this, Hannah is the founder of Sen Parenting UK, director, Rayo Foundation, and director of the Autism and Sen Show in Ghana. Hannah that has done amazing work. She has first-hand experience as a parent of a severely autistic young adult. She understands the challenges family face. She has a deep understanding of the stigma, cultural and ethnic beliefs that affect families of children with autism spectrum disorder and learning disabilities, especially within the Black and minority ethnic groups. Over the past 15 years, she has collaborated with special schools, medical consultants, and therapists worldwide. Her hands-on experience spans both the UK and Africa, where she continuously provides support to families facing similar challenges. Please, with a resounding round of applause, can we welcome Hannah as she comes on board to share her experience with us? Welcome, Hannah.
I do clap for you as well, all of you at Africaness and the wonderful jobs that you are doing, Bumi, Jessica, and you, Vivian. Yeah, thank you very much for such long introduction. Well, I'm really glad to be here today. I think I've dealt with this topic in different shapes and forms. Some of it is stigmatization, some of it is just culture matters, some of it is different ways. But I think today the way we are going to twist it a little bit and look at the myths and misconceptions, go back a bit to the roots and how we all feel. See, so I do want everyone to be engaged. We do have the chats. We'll get to a point we'll let people get engaged so that we all see where these emotions and feelings are coming from to see how it's affecting us as well. Yeah. So I think we can go straight to the slides if you share it for me, please. I think I would go through the various steps of what we are going to discuss, and then we'll have a little discussion. I would like everyone to put in the chat with a few questions. How culture really affects you. It doesn't matter whether you are from Africa, from whichever country you are, even if you are in Europe or Asia or which part of the world you come from. All of us see that culture really affects us. It affects everyone from our various cultures from different parts of the world. And how this affects we as families or individuals who are neurodiverse is what we're going to talk about today. So I think you heard Vivian talking about neurodiversity. Yeah, we are not going to expand on neurodiversity, but neurodiversity, as Vivian said, will include anything like any conditions like having autism, ADHD, having dyslexia, having other forms of needs that would mean that you would need support. So yeah, thank you. I can see it now. All right. So here is the points that we're going to go through today. I think the introductions have been done already. A little bit about myself. Vivian has done part of that. And then we talk about culture. What does culture really mean? We won't go in depth, but we'll describe it in a way that will support us. And how does your culture affect you? How does mine affect me? See. And then we also try to understand the myths and misconceptions that we have in our various cultures. How it's really affecting us, how it's affecting us, especially families, young adults, how it's affecting the development of our kids in schools, in homes, in communities. And then we come to the point that what help do families really need? What help do we think we all need? And as we may have some professionals maybe in here with us, it would be good to really let professionals know how we can be helped. That because I think that is one of the main issues with all our projects that we've been doing with NHS England and improvement, is how professionals can engage with hard to reach families or families from neurodiverse backgrounds. Okay, then we go finally to the questions and answers. All right, so next slide. Okay, so I like to talk a little bit about me, just a little bit more. So I was born in Ghana, West Africa, and I grew up in Ghana throughout all my childhood years. So I was 20 when I came into the UK. So I'm in my 50s now. So obviously I've lived most of my life in the UK. Um, and this is where I could say that although I know how my culture is. My culture is still part of me since even if I traveled down here to the UK. And I had my son in the UK, my special needs son. So um I rather know more of the Western or UK special needs system more than what is in Africa, although I knew a little bit about how special needs people were maybe treated. I didn't even know much about it because I thought, oh, well, there are people that need to be other put outside the community, giving support and have some sympathy for them. You see, so that was the idea that I had. And as a mother of two, like you said, my son who is autistic, he's severe, he's nonverbal, has challenging behavior. So because I grew up in Africa, looking back, if someone like my son was brought up in Africa, how would the society see him? When they see it as a taboo or something that is not talked much about. So how would it be if he was in that environment as opposed to in Africa or Asia, or the a village kind of environment as opposed to here in the UK? So as much as we are talking about the myths and misconceptions, you could also see one side of the world that sees special needs as something special. People that we should involve them in communities. We should try and support them because they need some special treatment. And then you do have other communities like in Africa or other parts who might think, oh no, this is a taboo. You don't have to talk about it. It's something that you have to really hide under the pillow, not talk too much about it. So you can see two different cultures for understanding. And we would like to see maybe why this is the case and how we can work on it. So next slide. Okay, so as I was saying before, myself, I'm a parent. I came here in the UK, so I experienced special needs here in the UK. But even here in the UK, I experienced some stigma issues with the wider family, sometimes with friends, and with comments that they make. And in our community, some people might think that, oh, you should hide away. See, so it's really was quite difficult at the start, but because of our enlightenment here, it was much easier for me, and with my positive mindset, I rather try to learn more, go for trainings, and then try to expand my ideas and find solutions. So that is what I try to do. So looking at perspective from someone here in the UK, that's what I did. But then I also tried to go further outside the scope by setting up a school in Africa, in Ghana, actually, a special needs school. I partnered with my son's school, my son's primary school here in the UK, to set up a UK style special needs school in Ghana. And to be honest, I have to say it's one of the best projects that I engaged in. Because when I went to Ghana and I set up the school, that was when I really saw and understood how being a special needs parent or a special needs child or young person really feels. I really understood what people think from the various stories that parents come in and tell me, and the ideas that things that they were saying really opened my eyes. So I came to understand really how the other side of things are. Some people had very, very sad stories. And I think we'll talk a bit more about some of it when we go forward. So let's go to the next slide. Yeah. So just having the feel of me that from UK going to Africa, looking at all the situation and seeing a deeper understanding into the beliefs and understanding of how we think about those with special needs. I now come and see for us to really have a think. Let's have a think now and see how our cultures really affects us first. Let's see and have a feel of it. So we're going to go through just a few questions here. Yeah, culture, beliefs, and myths. How your culture affects you. So for everyone here, first of all, think about your ethnic background. I think we'll give half a minute or something for each of the questions from you. Think about your ethnic background. Are you from Africa? Are you from Asia? Are you from Caribbean? Are you from where? I think let's go to the next slide and I'll come back to this one. If you can go to the next slide, just to give everybody a bit of what they should be thinking about. If you could see, there are various cultures here that we can see. We're talking about the BEAM community. So it's Black, Asian, minority ethnic groups. So it doesn't only involve us and from Africa, actually. So we see that we have certain beliefs and mindsets. And then we can also be from having a lifestyle or dressing from a community. You can also have community laws, certain laws that abide by your communities, wherever you come from. And then where you live, there must be a mix of cultures. Yeah, some people are from Cameroon, some from Spain, some from Africa, like we're talking about. So we all do have mixed cultures. Some people are half African, half Spanish. So where they have cultures from different other from different parents. See, so we also come now and think, apart from the cultures that we have, what are the myths that we have about disabilities within each of our cultures? Yeah, and how this affects especially from families like ourselves. So I've given you a bit of idea. So let's go back to our questions and let's see. Right. So now the first question, I think most people have answered it. What is your ethnic background? You've said it. Okay, so let's think about it. I want us to see really that even if you think we've traveled or we are in the Western world or whatever, our culture really affects us. So just say one thing that you have done this morning that is based on your culture. Is there anything that you've done? Okay, look at me. I've got an African fan here. So my dressing can be, yeah, some people have had traditional food. That's true. Lunch. I don't know whether some had jollof or fufu or ogbono and pounded yam or whatever it is. So definitely something yes, someone would definitely have done something since morning that is based on their culture. See, so this shows us that we are affected in a way. Sometimes you might not see it, but then it becomes part and parcel of you. Prayers, yes, somebody says prayers. It becomes part and parcel of you. It becomes part of your neuro system without you actually seeing it. Yeah. So now, well done. The next question I would like to ask is, someone made a tar this morning by themselves. That's fantastic. That's good. So the next question will go is, what cultures or beliefs exist within your communities about disabilities? From your various communities, how do they view disabilities? We know that from the African and other sub-Saharan countries, disability is viewed in many ways. Majority as a curse, yes. For a place like Ghana, where I am, there are various regions within Ghana, which is a country, some places they see it as a case. They see it as children who have been brought about by various gods and all that. And some other parts actually see it differently. They think that because the special needs children looks quite different, there may be some people born from those who are from their gods or something. So they put some kind of fear or reference for them. And see, there are so many different stories that people have within their communities, and you could see that maybe within one country there might be different beliefs. Yeah. So these are beliefs that are there. And how does culture affect you? The next question. So how does the culture affect you as a special needs parent or family? Does it affect you? Yes, family breakdown. That is true, because that's one of the major things we have seen. We can go into why is there family breakdowns when there's a disability? You see, because of our culture, because of the stresses of it, or what? So yeah, breakdown families is one. Some of it minimal support sometimes, yes, because families they feel that no, you are an outcast, so we cannot really interact much with you, and you feel quite alone. We'll talk more about this. So this is a session that I want you to see yourself within yourself, to see that actually culture is affecting all of us in some way, no matter whether you are very educated or you are, or your religion, it does affect you in a way.
And could it be that sometimes as a parent or married couples, like maybe the father or the mother don't understand the diagnosis, and that could also impact on how they parent the child in terms of their parenting style? Because one parent may believe that, yes, the child's got something, and the other parent may say no, and that in itself can cause problems.
Exactly. The problem is that if you live in the UK or you live in the Western world, there's a lot of information. There's a lot of awareness, but some people might just block it. You understand? It's not that the information is not there. You see, there's so many illnesses that we have, and then sometimes, like COVID came, all of us learned about COVID. We know about COVID, we knew what to do, we're ready to learn and protect ourselves. But sometimes the information is there, but some families might, some people, like you say, even in couples, one will be ignorant of it, one will try and learn more about it, one will refuse to accept it, and then so that brings about a lot of problems. Yeah. So if there's any other cultural ethnic issues, like you mentioned, that is exactly what happened. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. Yeah, I think we've talked about this. See, so now that we have all seen that all of us have a little bit of cultural issues in us, we do know that we live by certain cultures. Yeah. So we now delving a bit deep into understanding the myths and cultural differences within African and other communities. I think the first point we're going to talk about is patient beliefs and stories that are attributed to disability, which sometimes could be witchcraft or a case, like you said. So imagine yourself that you are living 200 years ago. In those olden times when we had our great grandparents. Imagine when you were born, if a child is born and they have some form of disability, or they are jumping around, maybe they have autism, ADHD, back then they could not sit still, they are doing things. What do you think your great grandparents or the community will do? You see, they did not have any understanding. They don't know. There's no connection with the outside world. They don't know that there's something even called autism or maybe dyslexia or they've got OCD. They did not understand that the child is just running around or maybe any other form of disability. So back then, in the past, our ancestors or great grandparents had ways of either using herbal medicine or they don't understand that why should this child look different. And back then they did have certain beliefs. Yeah, that when a child is born like that, maybe based on what their own mothers or grandparents have told them, when a child is born like this is what we do, this is what we believe. Maybe there's a story like this that happened in the past. So this is what happened. And so that is the idea that ancestors or great grandparents might have. And then they gave birth to our grandparents and our parents, and some of those things are taught by them, and then we kind of live by it. And then, as you see, it community beliefs. Then the whole community start believing something that, oh, this is what it is, because this is what we know. You understand? And sometimes we don't know how to deal with it. So the way that is dealt with is what maybe the village elder or some kind of herbalist or somebody will say, this is the solution. That is what they taught. So this kind of way of life and beliefs became some form of part of their lives, part of their values. And I like to give an example, which has got nothing to do with special needs in a way, but then just for us to see, do we have traditional weddings in our communities? We do have traditional weddings, yes. Some of the things that we do, that is to go around and find your husband or dress like this or those things, some of those stories or the way we do those ceremonies come from way back about how our great grandparents used to do things. And sometimes people love that culture. They love how things is special. And I remember my daughter telling me about, because she was born here and then we went to Africa, and we went to a naming ceremony. You see, there's a way that they do the naming ceremony in Africa, and it was like, oh, this looks very, very different. I've never seen that. So that is a kind of culture and thing that had come forward. So there are certain things, there are certain cultures and things that we bring forward. And in the same way, we bring the ideas of how special needs people or how disabilities are viewed back then. You see? So this is some of the issues that we need to say, that as we all walk around, even though we live in the UK, we do have this kind of upbringing or beliefs that we're brought up with, that we have valued. And because we do sometimes, we have to respect our elders and our parents and all that. We do follow what they say, and it becomes part of us. You see, it sometimes becomes part of us, and it becomes entrenched in how we do things. See, so you see that some families would definitely be going through mixed cultures. You've come to live in the UK. The UK has its own culture. It has its beliefs about special needs. You do believe it, that autism is a neurodevelopmental disability. ADHD is also a form of a need, neurodiverse condition. You could have specific learning difficulty. You know that. But then another side of us, or another side of us or our families, is also thinking about how they used to be taught in the past. You see? Or you might marry a partner whose family might be thinking about that. So it's all a mixture that is part of us. You see, so looking at all this, how can we deal with the situation? Being aware of it is one of the most important things. And trying to choose what is best, how we can best support our children, is very important. So being aware is very important. And I would like us to go to the next slide and see how these beliefs really affects us. I've just put a few points here because I want you also to be involved in this. I'm sure there's so many. How does these beliefs and these misconceptions affect you, affect us, affect our families and our communities, and affect how we support our special needs children or young people or families or adults? You see, so like one person said, family breakups. And one point I want to also say is that even before you have a family, when our community knows that you have special needs person in your family, sometimes they will not even marry into your family at all. They said, "Oh, this family, don't even marry into it, because if you marry into it, like it's just like the special needs is I wouldn't know how to say it, like it's a genetic condition or something like that. There are some genetic conditions, but sometimes it's that's one of the problems we face. You see, so the negative impact, there's more negativity attached to special needs. Yeah, that's true. So, yeah, so there's more negativity attached to special needs from our cultural background, um, as opposed to accepting it and seeing it as a social responsibility for us to support ourselves. You see, so family breaks up come about because sometimes it could be the extended family, the in-laws and the other family saying that, oh, you have brought kids into our family, you've brought this, and sometimes they might even wonder, no, having children with one person might produce more special needs. So they'll break up and then go and find other partners to see whether they will have children who are not neurodiverse. You see, so because of all of this negativity and the stigma and the shame that families feel they will have on their names and all that, it can of cause a lot of isolation and loneliness for some of the family. They feel so isolated. They feel that they don't want to talk about it. You see, and that might lead to a lot of stress and the mental health issues, in that they get depressed because there's not much support. You see, and most of us don't get that support from our community because it's something that nobody wants to talk about. I think we all experience that. See, so let's go to the next slide. You see, so looking at all of this, I think the idea for this session is for us to see where it all came from, how we all have to accept that our culture affects us in a way, truly accept it, identify the problem, and now trying to get professionals as well to know that this is the additional issues that families face. We do have this emotional issues that we face with our families, the beliefs, the sadness because of the negativity. So, how should professionals treat us? And as the first point says, UK is a very diverse community. It's really, really diverse. So, all of us come from different backgrounds, and I think each one of us should look at how we are affected. If somebody is from Spain, their belief in that village or the community they are might be slightly different from me from Ghana, or another person from Nigeria, or someone from Cameroon. You see, although there would be similarities. You see, so identifying that we do have these issues that affect families is good for professionals to identify it and be a bit kinder to families. I mean, to be aware of the entrenched and biased views that sometimes families feel that they get from professionals. And for professionals also to see the stigma, isolation, and fear and frustration that we also feel. See, so it's very important. So sometimes families, that's one thing that we see all the time, that sometimes English not being the first language for some of them, it makes it even more difficult for them to express it. You see, explaining themselves, number one. Number two, a taboo that nobody talks about. So you are not even able to talk about it. You can imagine. See, so we ensure that when professionals are working with families, to make sure they give them enough time to process, give them the time and be really empathetic with them. You see, and make sure that the rights of each parent, it doesn't matter which background they come from, the rights that they have are upheld. And if there are other organizations in the community or in the borough, like Africaness or other organizations that support such families, it's good really to have organizations that work with families like yourselves, because then you can share your same views. You know how to, you know what you have experienced. You see, so you can share the feelings and the pains and how you can both support each other. You see, so we really like professionals to really see that there's some additional problems that we have on top of all the other problems that all special needs families face. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Yeah. So I think that is one of the main points that I wanted to bring out. But just to make a point here, since looking at my own journey, and looking at the fact that I was just a parent with a special needs son, I had a background that had my culture entrenched in me, and finding it, although I more embrace the Western system, I tried to learn more about autism, but I was still affected by families and all that in the community. And then going to Africa and hearing a lot of stories with families. I mean, we only have 1 hour, so I wouldn't be able to go through all of that. And so seeing all of those things, I saw that, look, this is very serious. It's something that we need to really acknowledge. So in Africa, I set up a foundation in my son's name in a school. And the foundation was able to get parents to come out and talk more, and some really getting more understanding and awareness that this is there. Neurodiversity is something that is global. Having the school that shows that our kids can develop, and then having positive stories. You see, showing the resources and the support that were here in the UK that we could provide for our kids in Africa, and even using African resources. So it got to the point we had to even go to the market and talk to the women that, look, the same way that you can have different special needs, like other things that other conditions that are accepted, it's the same way that we should try and accept this. You see, and then I also engage in a project with in doing the Autism and Special Needs show, which we started 5 years ago, to train schools and teachers, because a lot of schools, teachers, professional doctors don't even know about it. So sometimes they don't even know how to manage it. But one thing that some schools are also facing in Africa, which is also a stigma, is that some parents with severe kids do not want to take their kids to special schools. They rather want to take their kids to mainstream schools. And the mainstream schools may try to take them, but then it gets to a point where other parents who have their kids there want to remove their kids because they brought a special needs child into their school, and they think that maybe it is infectious. You understand? So how could it is infectious? So even in today's world, in this modern society, sometimes we do have a lot of some of these misconceptions that have been diluted, but they are still around. You see, so it's all an issue that doing all these projects is still opening my eyes to how people feel from the olden times to the modern times, even now, how the whole community, workplaces, sometimes people having positions, even going to work, they cannot talk about it that they are neurodiverse. Either I'm dyslexic or I think I have ASD or ADHD, because they'll put a stigma on it. They'll think it's a problem. They might pay more money is too much cost. So you might not even get a job, or you might not even get a school for your child. So these things are still really going on, you see. And either like, yes, people are still in denial, you see, but still they stay in denial. And then when their young people become adults and they hit crisis, that's when they wake up. You see, but then it's a bit too late. See, so in the UK here too, we are doing things. I have a child to person parenting, which is also supporting families here to understand not only the families who are neurodiverse. And we also did a joint project with a second voice CIC, my good friend Vanessa. We were the first two charities that were funded by NHS Improvement to do the first BEAM project on avoidance and prevention into mental hospitals, because we saw that a lot of our young people, because of this stigmatization and denial and all of that, parents don't get early intervention, they don't get early support because they don't want to accept it. And then when the young people grow up, then they get into crisis, then they end up being in inpatient units. Okay, so this is the projects that we've done, and we're still learning a lot more for to do. So let's go to the next slide. I think we are almost done. Right. So I think because it's only 1 hour, honestly, if you give me 3 hours, I'll talk and talk and talk. I don't think I'll be finished. But there's so much points that I think is more related with the myths and misconceptions that we have, that has been part of our neural system. And is, although we are trying to demystify ourselves based on the fact that we are in Europe or wherever you are, or because knowledge has become abundant, we are still trying to learn more. But how can we really move forward with all these misconceptions that we have discussed about, which little bits are still ingrained in us? You see? So how are we going to do it? If we have certain things that are quite slow in progressing, things that are really fast in progressing. What example is that? For example, my mobile phone. I don't think any of you is using YAM phones anymore these days. Everybody is moved on. iPhone 15, iPhone something. People move on very fast with technology and cars and all that. So that one we go far. But when it comes to misconceptions, when it comes to other things like disabilities, how are we moving on? So thank you very much. I'd like to give some time for question and answer because I really want to engage with the audience, honestly. So I think, yeah, we can take the stop sharing. And then let's see if there are any questions that anybody has, any discussions that we want to say, or if you want to ask me a bit more questions about my journey, which I only said 1/10 of it this evening because it's only 1 hour. But I hope we've been able to explain a little bit. So is there any question? I have Florence's hand up.
Yeah, it's not a question, but just a suggestion. I love what Africanness are doing, but I think to target more audience is to kind of like, my idea is like to have a conference somewhere within the UK whereby different organizations can come together, and that gives you opportunity to share kind of an idea with other what they're doing, maybe in the UK or in Africa, of whatever part of the country they come from. Then at least that will be advocating more. For instance, like at the moment, I've set up a community-based organization in Kenya. And one of the challenges I'm experiencing is having to work with professionals that don't seem to understand anything about autism. So I'm going to Kenya in a couple of weeks' time, and I'm trying to kind of like see if working with the education sector, is it going to help? So with conferences, at least you kind of network more because it's open to the wider community. And with that, we can always exchange ideas with the ultimate goal of providing better services within our community.
Okay, Florence, thank you. Nice to see you, Florence. Thank you for coming. Okay, so I think that's Florence suggesting. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Hannah. Thank you for Florence for that input and reflection. Thank you, Hannah. This has been, a very reflective, session. And while we wait for for the questions to come in, I just wanted for us to reflect on everything that you have said, because I mean, even for me, with everything that I know, there's more perspective. You sharing from a professional point of view, from a lived experience point of view across two continents, that was really enlightening. And I suppose it is something that we then take back on our individual to our individual selves, to then start to question, how does this concern us and where can we support? So if you're listening and you are a parent who has a special need child, I mean, I suppose the question would then be, how is my culture getting in the way? How, has my culture shaped the misconceptions I have around neurodiversity, and how can I deal with this, and then so that it doesn't get in the way of the support I give to my children. And if you're just a regular community member who just joined in and who just wanted to know what we're doing here, you also have an action to take, because it's also for us to take all of what we have heard here to then reflect on how, we hold some beliefs that might get in the way of, supporting people in our community, or that might even shape how we react and respond to our community members who have children on the spectrum. We're in churches, we're in community centers. How do we respond? How do we behave when we see parents who have special needs children and who are struggling? To really reflect on that. And for some of us who are professionals who are listening, to then think about everything we have heard here and how we can take it back into our practice, I mean, if you have listened to this, I think that you should leave here having more empathy for parents who are from the ethnic minority, with this understanding of the additional challenges that they face, coupled with the challenges of being a parent of a special need children. So I say all of that to say, we're not just talking about myths and misconceptions. As much as we have heard these stories and everything, it's really a call to action, and for us to really reflect as to where we might be, this might be showing up in our own life and in our practices, and how we can really utilize this information to do things, better moving forward. Yeah, so I think we have questions. I think, yeah, do we have questions?
I think I saw a
Um,
question about how can we learn more about autism. I think somebody was asking that. How can we learn more? That it came first.
all right, yeah. Someone asked about that. I don't know if you want to respond. Okay, I don't know if you want to respond to that. I think I might have responded in a chat, but someone says with the how, I think busting the myth is very important. You spoke at the beginning about how there are not these are not black people's condition, or the fact that Christians or church views are often responsible for the perception of disability. We can educate others by explaining how during the transatlantic slave trade, those with disabilities were the first to be killed and didn't even make it to the ship. Colonization was largely responsible in Africa and the Caribbean for negative perception of disability, sexuality, gender, and etc. Just an input of a historian and researcher. Thank you so much for that perspective. Yeah, we all have a perspective to it, and now I've learned something that is interesting. So thank you so much. I don't know if anyone has a
I
question. You
think
can drop it in the chat, or we have just a few
There is
minutes.
a hands up, Doctor.
Oh, Miriam Jim Moore. Yeah, so please go ahead with your which what you want to say. Miriam.
I didn't. Sorry, I'm partially on the road, so it might be a bit noisy here. But let me quickly ask my question. So yeah, the speaker said that many parents do not like to take their children to special schools. I know there are some schools that are set up for children with living with autism and all that. And also there are also children who are on the spectrum who are also going to, the regular school like inclusion. So I want to ask, which is best? Are you encouraging that parents who have children on the spectrum should focus on taking these children to special schools? Or is it wrong that they are also taking these children to, the mainstream schools where they have to blend with other children to socialize? So that's what I want to get some clarifications on that aspect.
Yeah. Okay. Right. First thing to know is that autism is a wide spectrum. Actually, about 70% of our kids with autism are in the mainstream schools. So there are a lot of them who are milder, various strength, those who are neurodiverse. A lot of the other kids are in the mainstream. And if actually only 30% are the severe ones with challenging behavior that find it really difficult to be in the mainstream schools. I think the point I was making was not that some of our kids cannot be in the mainstream. There's a lot of them, a lot of milder kids, those with Asperger's. So what I'm saying from my experience, from when I set up a school, enough, I see because of the stigma and the denial and negativity, most families will try to, although when their kids would better be supported in special schools, they'll take them to the mainstream schools, believing that they will copy the children and then they'll start talking and they will improve just by copying. You see, so that was the cohort of parents I was talking about. But honestly, it depends on the assessment of a child. And then obviously you can't tell, most of our children develop with support, either in the mainstream or the special school, but that decision will have to be done by a professional.
Love it.
All right. Thank you, Ma. Thank you.
Hello, good evening. Thank you so much. What an insightful session. I just want to pick up on what the other speaker was saying, Miriam, asking questions about mainstreams. As an educator, we do have different kinds of students in our classrooms and in our schools. And schools have what we call the SENCO, the Special Education Needs Coordinator, who the SENCO works with multi-agent professionals to cater for the needs of these students. Sometimes when they join us in secondary school, their needs are already diagnosed at primary school, and they have what we call the IEP, Individual Education Plan, in place. And for students who are statemented, they also have to have a teaching assistant with them because they have what we call the EHCP plan in place for them. So no, there is nothing wrong with having your child in the mainstream education, but you just have to make sure that the school understands their education needs, their learning difficulties, and that these have been diagnosed either at primary school or by your GP, and you have medical evidence. Bring that to the school so the school is aware, because a lot of times parents expect us to be the ones diagnosing those needs. And then, because for one reason or the other, the GP may charge them to diagnose them. So they expect schools to be the ones diagnosing those needs and then also providing the provision available. We do all that, but we don't have the specialist skills to diagnose the needs. Teachers can only flag up the symptoms they notice in classrooms for autistic children or for children who are any of the children who are on the spectrum side. They will only notice, and most of the cases behavioral. So they will try to, but we don't have what it takes to diagnose the need. So we always encourage parents, take them to the GP because they are the professionals and they have the skills to diagnose those needs and to give us the strategies to guide us in how to implement some of the strategies and what we need to do to support the child in school. Every single school has a SENCO, Special Education Needs Coordinator, who works with professionals to ensure that the identified learning needs of the child are catered for in school. Schools don't have money anymore as we used to have in those days when I first started. And we have educational psychologists working with us. We have speech and therapists, speech therapists working with us, and all those. We don't have that anymore. So we try to make do with what we have and encourage parents to partner with us and work with us. Thank you. But there is nothing wrong with having your child in the mainstream education. You can just make sure that the school understands their needs and you are there working with the school. Sometimes they have parents who are imposing their ideologies on the school and criticizing the school for not supporting their child. You just have to be aware that schools don't have necessarily what it takes to be able to diagnose the needs of your child. We can only support when the needs have been diagnosed, and we have the EHCP plan in place, and we have the strategies to support your child. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. Love it. I think, yeah, all the points you are saying in the previous slides, 100%. And that is very true. And I think based on our topic today in terms of the myths and misconceptions, The problem is that a lot of families are not even going for the diagnosis because they are in denial. You see, so thank you so much that there's a lot of help out there. Yeah, leave it back to Vivian and Jessica.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Lovett. That was insightful. Thank you, Hannah. Thank you for everyone who has listened. And for people who are asking, I saw someone who is asking about, more sessions on how to support autistic children. We have, like I mentioned when we started, this is a 6-part series. Neurodiversity is a very large topic. There are layers to it. So we have tried as much as possible to fit as much as possible within this 6-part series, and it's going to run monthly. Our next session is going to be on the last Wednesday, just like this, the last Wednesday in August, and that would be on autism and challenging behavior. So in that session, we'll be speaking about how, what challenging behavior in, children with autism looks like, what the struggles are, and how to best navigate that challenge and how to best support your children. So please stick with us. Please, we want to also get your feedback about this session. Kindly look at the chat. You would see a link for us to get your feedback. We like to know what we did right and what we didn't do right and what you would like us to do so that we can improve on our sessions with you. Please do well to take that survey. And if you're a parent with an autistic child living in Leeds, we have put together an event for you to actually help you take time. I know this is summertime, so children are at home, so it can feel really overwhelming having them all day, not knowing how to engage them. So this is really time for you to get the children out of the home in a very inclusive space, get them to play, get them to engage, and also have that breather. So please, if you want to be part of that, kindly click on the link and register. That would happen on Sunday, 4th of August, by 2 p.m. We have a lot of resources, right? A lot of resources on our website. And then we have a group, right? A neurodiversity group for Africanist parents. So please kindly join our group. You can scan the QR code on the link, or you can use on the screen, or you can use the link in the chat, right? So that we can keep in touch. In that group, we share information, we share resources, we share upcoming events that can support you. We have a lot going on in the background for our community members who have children that have these needs, and we're working really hard to make sure that we're bridging the gap and we're providing all of the support that you need. So please be in touch with us. Follow us on all our social media handles. The easiest way to get in touch with us is by following us on all our social media handles and by joining our communities. That way you can ask all your questions. You can, seek the support that you need, and we'll be able to help you as much as you can. So we want to also say thank you again to our amazing sponsors who have made this very possible. The Leeds Community Fund and the George Martin Trust. I hope I got that. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you for your support. Thank you everything. Thank you for making this possible. And to everyone who has joined, we appreciate your time. We appreciate you for coming, for being open to learning, for being open to really seek all of this information and support that we're putting out there. And to the amazing people and my amazing team at Africanist, thank you. To our amazing speaker, Hannah, thank you so much for sharing your story so vulnerably, for sharing your expertise. Thank you so much. We appreciate your time. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful evening.